CBN MPC holds rates and other parameters constant, raises CRR from 22.5% to 27.5%. Federal government pumps 1.7 trillion naira into privatized power companies. Creative industry, fastest growing sector of Nigerian economy. Afrexim Bank shareholders invest $500 million in new equity. Plus, Trump zeroes in on Europe as next trade target. The program is Business Express and it is reaching you from The first MPC meeting for the year 2020 just rounded up in Abuja this Friday. To further shed more light on some of the issues raised at the just concluded meeting is a financial expert, Dr. David Aheruvo. Thank you so much for coming on Business Express
Thank
today.
you for having me today.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Nigeria.
All right. So the MPC has retained the monetary policy rate again at 13%.
13.5.
13.5 yes percent, and then only the CRR was changed a bit, but all other parameters were still same.
Exactly.
Did you see that coming?
Well, I saw it coming because I know that nothing has in any way improved from last year to this year. Nothing has improved. And if you watch the MPR from throughout last year, it was hovering around 13.5, 14, 13.5, 14. So nothing has happened this year. And I believe that it's very mechanical. Mechanical in the sense that if you don't do something, something will not happen. So if we have not seen any improvement in production, in other things, then MPR may not likely change.
All right, so the MPC talked about some factors why it retained the rate.
Yes.
It talked about the bearish outlook of the Nigerian Stock Exchange. It talked about prices of oil that are still unstable, and then global tensions here and there, and also the inflation rates that we still have high in Nigeria.
Yes.
So how do you see the stem of all this happening?
Well, I have to. I will react. I'll react in another direction to that, because if we put our monetary policy together in the proper sense and we allow it to affect the economy promptly, that is, we change some certain factors and manage the monetary policy very well, we will see that the economy will take off, will be improved. Let's look at the inflation which he has hammered on so drastically. Now, on the inflation, something usually causes inflation, not just pumping money. Because if there is no production, the few available products will be pursued by whatever money you have, and that will result in an inflation. Now, Nigeria has not been able to look at the supply side management of inflation.
Okay.
The supply side management of inflation. And if you want to make a supply side of the supply side management of the inflation, you have to make sure that there is a production sector is actually given a boost that it is required. If you look at the distribution of his loan, you discover that manufacturing is taking 446 billion, commerce is taking 402, and general commodity, forest and agri 160, and all that. 2 trillion is not enough to improve production to an extent that we attack inflation.
I was going to ask you the next question.
Yeah.
You're still talking about intervention, so let me still talk about the regular interventions of the CBN to the forex market. The first intervention for this year was $253 million. Yes. So as it continues to intervene in the forex market, how do you see this, reducing shocks on the market and, bringing the needed economic improvement?
There are 3 unholy trinity factors we normally have in economics. We have inflation rate, we have foreign exchange rate, and we have monetary policy rate or interest rate. Now, these 3 unholy trinity, anytime one pops up, increase, the other ones will react, it follows suit. Now, we can control the inflation from the angle of this interest rate. If the interest rate, for example, drop down, now you will discover that banks will be able to lend at a lower rate. Production will come at a lower cost. And subsequently, people will be able to buy at a lower price, which is less inflationary. Now, with the issue of the foreign exchange being pumped in, you discover that if foreign exchange are pumped in, what are they pumped in for? To be able to buy foreign goods. It will be my opinion that these foreign goods, most of them can be manufactured in Nigeria. Why don't we then pump in more money into production, local production, improve local production, and reduce imports? Then from there, you will reduce intervention.
Okay. You mentioned lending.
Yes.
When you were answering this question.
Yes.
So one of the things that the MPC hammered on is that it wants to increase or improve lending to the real sector.
Yes.
Okay. So do you see this MPR, the rate now, do you see it helping to achieve this?
If you increase the lending, the lending, that is the volume, into a production sector or into a manufacturing sector, and you don't you don't reduce the rate, it will still have a negative effect. And people will not like to go for such a loan. Now, in Japan, we have -0 loan interest. In UK, you have -0.5%, minus, not plus. That is what we call an incentive lending. That is, if you borrow, you earn. But in Nigeria, the highest now in Europe and America is around 2-3%. Why should our own be 13%?
The MPC gave several reasons why.
No, it can be controlled. Let there be more thinking.
Okay.
Let there be more thinking. You see, if you put in a reasonable economic effort and thinking caps and make sure that things are well done. Let me give you one or two examples. Okay. If you direct, if you reduce your monetary policy rate to 5%, for example, and you give the bank the leverage to lend at not more than 9%. Are you getting me, ma'am?
Yes.
What will happen is that you also give a directive that this money should not go to oil companies that are buying and selling. It should not go to foreign exchange where they were buying to and round tripping. It should go to the real sector. The problem we have is that the lending are for consumer lending. They are just commercial, and they are not productive. And because they are not productive, they are not of long-term nature. And once they are not long-term nature, you can't produce. If you bring in machinery now from abroad and you want to establish a production company, it will take you nothing less than 1 or 2 years. And you require a bank to give you a moratorium period of that 2 years before paying. So you cannot give a bank, a bank cannot give you a loan of 3 months and expect you to produce anything.
Okay. The MPC also suggests that the cost of governance should be reduced.
Exactly.
In the country.
I quite agree with them on that.
And how can this be done? And then what can it help the country to achieve if it is done?
Well, the politicians might not like this.
Okay.
But the truth of the matter is that the cost of governance is too high. It takes nearly more than 40–50% of the budget. You look at the total budget have a recurrent expenditure of nearly 70%, which is not doing anybody any good. Now, what I will suggest is let the parliamentary be part-time. Any person that wants to come, let him come. If you don't want to come, stay in your house.
Okay.
Let all the paraphernals attached to all the governors and they'll be shut down. And let there be an expenditure cut in what is their salaries and allowances.
Okay. The Nigeria's growth is projected by IMF for 2020 to grow to 2.5%. 2.5. Yes.
And World Bank 2.2.
World Bank a little less than that. While the CBN is projecting
2.25.
Yes. Okay. So what do you think needs to be done for us to be able to achieve that growth in this year 2020?
Yeah, what you need to achieve that growth is we need a lot of work to be done in terms of production, reducing imports, increasing what I call foreign direct investment. Because most of the time, Nigerian banks are not solid enough, I would say, solid enough to give a large facilities. Take for granted, if you are looking for $50 million loan now, you'll find it difficult to get. So, but a foreign investor can say, how much do you want? 100 million? Okay, I'm coming there. We have a lot of solid minerals. We have a lot of things that are of interest to foreign investors. Let's market those investors and let them come and establish in Nigeria. And when they are coming, they should not be threatened by some policies that are chronic. Like we put on $1 million or $2 million in your account, and the EFCC is going around you that, where do you get this money? Money does not sleep. No investor will want to put in his money, $5 million, $10 million, or $20 million, $50 million, and you lock it up, and you don't want him to start using his money immediately. It won't work.
All right, on a final note.
Thank you.
Let's just talk about, just give us what you think about the decision of the MPC today.
Okay.
And how you perceive it and how it's going to help the economy.
Well, what I see is that nothing has changed. And since nothing has changed, we must work to change things by next MPC.
Okay.
We must work.
Okay.
And raising the CRR from 22 to 27.5 is just going to give the banks an excuse of not lending. Okay. Or lending at a higher cost. Because if you have a fewer goods and more people are coming for it, you raise your price. It's as simple as that. Then MPR by next time should be reduced drastically. Then the liquidity ratio should also be reduced to create enough money for the banks to lend. And when you create enough money for the banks to lend, you give them a directive of lending on a long term, not on a short term. And make sure that the banking supervision department, who is to check all this, or the financial regulation department, who is to check all these things, are up to the task, giving a very sound report of compliance.
All right. Thank you very much. I guess we have to stop there. Thank you, Dr. David Aheruvo.
Thank you for having me.
A financial expert, for coming on Business
Thank you.
Express.
Thank you very much.
Okay, moving on. The Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, has announced the appointment and redeployment of some directors in the Apex Bank. A statement from the CBN says Yusuf Philip Yila, a director with the bank and the managing director, Nicel Microfinance Bank, has been redeployed to Development Finance Department with effect from Friday, January 24, 2020. Yila succeeds Dr. Mudashiru Oletan, who retired, while Abubakar Abdullahi Kure takes over as acting managing director of the Nicel Microfinance Bank. The euro hovered near a 7-week low against the dollar on Friday after the European Central Bank was seen as more cautious than expected. And to other news, the African Export-Import Bank, Afrexim, says existing shareholders have invested in new equity to strengthen it. A statement by the bank indicates that the shareholders, including the Federal Republic of Nigeria and the Arab Bank for Economic Development in Africa, invested $200 million in shares and $300 million in callable capital, bringing the total value of new shares issued by the bank in 2019 to $500 million. The bank said the majority of the proceeds of the capital raised were used to retire warrants that were issued in December 2018. Meanwhile, the National Economic Council (NEC) says the resolve of the federal government to borrow 2 trillion naira from the current 10 trillion naira pension funds is to finance the development of infrastructure.
The federal government has supported the electricity industry with 1.7 trillion in the last 3 years. And this is not sustainable. Infrastructure investment fund can be created using the existing PENCOM law and regulations, which allows up to 20% of the total pension fund to be used to invest in infrastructure and other long-term assets. Sometimes conflicting presentations from various stakeholders in the power sector. But I think there is will on the part of all the members to really go to the root of all the problems and speak to ourselves in an honest national conversation.
And the federal government says the creative industry is the fastest growing sector of the Nigerian economy in terms of business opportunities, employment generation, earnings, and entertainment. The Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, said this in Madrid, Spain, at the 11th edition of the Tourism Investment and Business Forum for Africa, organized by the United Nations World Tourism Organization and CSSA Africa.
Probably the platform through which Nigeria is best known after music. And Nollywood, which is what we call, which is our own version of Hollywood, actually today employs over 1 million people, directly or indirectly. Nollywood, to see the growth of the industry, in 2014, we had only 23 cinema houses. We had 100 screens and just 3 digital platforms. 4 years later, we have 51 cinema houses, 183 screens, and we have 5 digital platforms. But that is just the tip of the iceberg, because we need in Nigeria today 6,000 screens and 1,000 cinema houses for a population of 200 million people. In 2014, we grossed $36 million from music. That went to $53 million in 2019, and hopefully by 2021, we'll be reaching $86 million US.
And talking commodities, oil prices edged up on Friday, helped by a decline in U.S. crude stockpiles. And on the stock market, the market closed bullish on the Nigerian Stock Exchange this Friday. The all-share index appreciated by 0.13% to close at 29,628.84 basis points, with market capitalization at 15.2 trillion naira. 184.5 million volume of stocks were traded in 3.5 billion naira worth in 3,852 deals. Guarantee Trust Bank topped the most sought-after stocks, followed by Nigerian Aviation Handling Company and Transcorp. The top gainers, Better Glass, Seplat and Dangote Cement, while MTN Nigeria, Unilever and Dangote Sugar were the top decliners. Japanese shares ended slightly higher on Friday in a seesaw session as worries about the spread of a new virus in China lingered. Josade Ebel takes it from here.
The market in early trading of Friday 24th January stabilized as investors take comfort from the World Health Organization's announcement of coronavirus in China that no global emergency yet. European stocks were bullish. DAX added 1.3%, FTSE increased 1.38% and CAC 40 1.37%. In Asia, market edged higher, although the number of coronavirus cases in mainland China rose to more than 800, with death toll increasing to 25. Hang Seng Index recovered from an earlier slip, rising 0.15% to close early at 27,949.64. The Nikkei in Japan closed 0.13% higher at 23,827.18, while Shanghai Composite was down at 2.73%. The U.S. stocks were slightly higher, indicated a positive open, where the S&P 500 rose 0.11%. Nasdaq Composite also increased 0.2%, while the Dow Jones Industrial Average was down 0.09%. Here in Africa, stocks were mostly green. South Africa's JSE Africa Top 40 increased by 0.76%. Nairobi's all-share inched up 0.13%. Namibia's overall index 0.15%, and Ghana's GSA Composite also topped 193%. While on the flip, Tunisia's Tunidex was down at 0.39%.
With the stock report, we wrap up this edition of Business Express. You can access previous episodes on YouTube on NTA's channels. You can also communicate with us on Twitter. The handle is @NTA News Now. The hashtag is BizX. Business Express returns on Monday. I am Muplang Dakok, and as I always say, keep thinking and doing business.